What's up YouTube? It's your boy Southside Customs back at it with another video. Today I'll be using Blender to show you how to use geometry nodes to make a textured abstract shape art. This is what you will be walking away with once you're done. The file of this project is free to download in the description below, so be sure to check that out. And without any further ado, let's get right into the video. Enjoy. Okay, so when you have Blender open, you're just going to select the camera and the light settings, and you're just going to delete all of these so you could start on a clean slate. And then you're going to hit Ctrl A and you're going to select a plane right in the middle, like so. You could either zoom in or you could enlarge. And you're going to hit Ctrl A again, and you're going to hit curve, and you're going to select a Bezier circle. And then after, you're just going to hit Ctrl G, and then you're going to move the Bezier circle to the side. Go onto your Bezier circle settings, and then you're going to hit the resolution all the way to 64, including the render to 64. And then you're going to hit geometry, and then you're going to go into the depth settings, and I'm going to enter 0.063 m. You could enter this value manually, it's up to you. And then after, I'm going to just recenter my frame for some further settings. Then you're going to click on geometry nodes, and then I'm just going to collapse that tab. You're going to click on new, and then you're going to select group input, and you're just going to delete that node. You're going to hit Ctrl A, and you're going to go into search, and I'm going to put a mesh line. You're just going to connect the mesh to the geometry node, and then you're going to select a new node, instance on points. You're just going to center it in the middle. You're going to select your Bezier circle and click and drag onto the node collection. You're going to select geometry into instance. So you should have something like this after it's centered. Okay, and then I'm going to make a count of roughly 30 to 35, but this is up to you. It can range anywhere from 30 to 50 if you're feeling a little bit adventurous. And then you're just going to drag the location right in the middle of the point. Okay, and I'm going to add a new node. I'm going to add a map range. So you're just going to click on that, and then you're just going to drag it in a reasonable position, and I'm going to connect the result to the scale. And then I'm going to add another node, I'll add a gradient texture. Again, you're going to click and drag and position it, and then you're going to change it to spherical like the way I did. Then you're going to collect the color node into the first value, and this is what you should have. Be in mind that the shape that you created has to be in the middle so that you could have this exact shape that I have. Okay, so take note of the input that I put on in the bottom there so you could have the same input or the same output. I'm going to change the offset z-axis to 0.08. And then the start location, I'm going to select it to negative 1.15, and okay, I'll go with 1.19, and you should have something like that. Now you're going to select your Bezier circle. You're going to go onto the Bezier settings, and you're going to go onto depth. I want to give it a more thicker look, so I'm going to make it 0.075, and you should have something like that. I'm then going to select the plane. Then I'm going to go back to my offset z-axis, and I'm going to make it 0.11. I'm doing this just to make it evenly spread out so it doesn't look too spread. I just want to make it a little bit more densely packed. Once that's done, you're just going to tilt. You're just going to gently tilt the shape on its axis just to give it a little bit more of an accent or an attitude. Once that's done, you're just gonna drag the group output just a little bit further apart. You're gonna add a new node. So I'm gonna add realize instances right in the middle of instant on points and group output. Once that's done, you're gonna click on and add a modifier. You're gonna add that modifier, and then just make sure that all the inputs that I'm entering you do replicate so that you don't go wrong when following this tutorial. You're then going to click on your Bezier circle. Be in mind that this is a copy of the original Bezier circle that I clicked and dragged. You're going to click your initial Bezier circle, and then you're going to turn that into a mesh. Once that's done, you're going to click on the initial Bezier circle, and you're going to rename this displacement. I'll rename mine into displacement. Once that's done, you're going to add a modifier, and you're going to add a displace modifier. Okay, and then you're going to select magic, and then you're just going to drop your depth all the way to 0. Select your settings. Mid-level has to be 0.445, and your strength, I'll make it a measly one, a 0.120, and make sure the direction is normal. Then I'm going to select an empty plane axis, which I am then going to carefully position on the Bezier circles that I created earlier. I'm going to preferably put this one on the bottom Bezier circle, like so. So I am going to take time to properly center like I'm doing as follows. Once that's done, you're just going to reposition your axis, and you're going to select the displacement Bezier circle. Go into your texture, and you're going to select your coordinates to object, and then select object and then make it empty. Select your plane, and then click on your simple deform. This time I'm going to go onto timeline. Select your frames and make it 10. Once it's 10, then you're just going to make sure that it starts at 0, and then you're going to go into the geometry nodes. Now you can just start making your own tweaks. I'm going to make it so that the biggest bulge sticks out, and that's where I'm going to click I to animate, and then go back to the timeline and do the same with the 10th frame. Then you're going to click on empty, and I'm going to enter 60 frames. This could be anywhere from 300 all the way to 800 depending on the speed of your computer. I'm using a much slower computer, so that's why I'm opting for 60 frames. Once that's done, you should be on your plane. Make sure that the plane and the geometry node is selected. Once that's done, you're going to go into your graph editor. Select the last value. Click on modifiers, and then you're going to click onto cycles. Once that's done, you're just going to go back to your timeline, and once you click the space key, it should animate. Once you have all that figured out, now we're going to go back to your displacement, and we're going to go onto your timeline, and just try to replicate all my settings that I'm entering to just get the same output that I get. So just be sure to rewind and follow the steps correctly so that you get the same result that I do. Once that's done, we're going to add another plane. So this is going to be for the background of the shape, because we're later going to add the lighting. So you're just going to enlarge this plane, and you're going to gradually drag it behind the object to act as a background for our animation that we're going to do. So once that's centered, you're just going to have it centered, and then we're going to add a camera. You're just going to click and drag the camera along its red axis on the red arrow, gradually drag it behind so that it centers the object that we're working with. You can add tweaks of your own, be as creative as you like. So I'm gonna go with this positioning. Once you're satisfied, we're gonna add, what are we adding? Okay, we're gonna go and select camera, and we're gonna add light. So we're gonna add an area, and we're going to position as follows. So this is the top view. So just make sure that the rays point directly to the object. Then you're going to change the shape into a disc. Take your time when doing this. Just make sure that it directly points to the object so that the light properly illuminates the object. Once that's done, we're going to increase the power to 544 watts. Then you're going to duplicate that light. So in this instance, I hit Control Shift D and then duplicate it so that whatever setting you do on one light, it's going to replicate those settings on the other one, so you don't have to keep on going back and forth with the settings on the other light source. So just play around with the light positioning until you're satisfied with the end result. And then we're going to duplicate one of the light rays, and then we're going to reposition the light to reflect onto the background, so it provides a little bit of foreshadowing on the object that we're going to be working with. So it adds a little bit of more character to the object when it's going to be animated. We're going to go back to the light settings and we're going to make sure it's on disk. So once that's selected, we're just going to enlarge. Reminder that this is optional. You don't actually have to do this depending on which version of Blender you're using. So you could skip this step. So then you're just going to change the intensity of it. I'm going to change it to 300 watts. And the ones on the side I will change to a measly, I think I'll go with 800 watts. Once that's done, you're going to select the background plane. We're going to go on add new material, click on new, and then we're going to click on the base color, and I'm going to give mine a light blue hue. Once that's done, you're going to go into the shading editor and you're going to click new, delete material, and you're going to rename it Guy. So I'll rename mine Guy. You can rename it anything you want. Go back to geometry nodes. Then I'm just going to bring that up, and we're going to add some new nodes onto the ones we have to enhance the artwork. So I'm just going to drag that to the side, and I'm going to hit Control A, search. And I'm going to hit set material and bring it right over here. make sure you select Guy, the initial material you created before, so that this works. Once that's done, you're going to click on shading, and you're going to have these nodes. You're just going to duplicate that. Now I am going to insert a new node. Mix shader. Make sure that when you do connect the nodes to each other, that they match mine that I'm adding. So I'm going to select base color, and I'm going to try to match the same color that I used for the background plane. So the factor is going to be maximized. Decrease the roughness, lower the roughness, not all the way to the bottom, just leave it like the way I did, so that it reflects the light a little bit more better. And then I'm going to go into the transmission, and I'm going to bring that all the way up. I'm going to hit Control A, and I'm going to insert a new node. I'm going to insert a color ramp. Just make sure the connections that you're adding on the nodes just match the ones I'm adding. After adding a color ramp, you're going to add a gradient texture, and then you're going to add another node called mapping. You're going to add another node called texture coordinate. Be in mind that this is a Voronoi texture, so if you have the Voronoi, this is going to be unnecessary. So you could either do it automatically or manually the way I did. Keep in mind of the connection that I'm making in between the nodes. So what I'm doing in the color ramp is I'm adding this gray accent shadowing that's gonna go right through, that's gonna go across the shape to just give it a little bit of foreshadowing on the texture, as it's a glass kind of like texture, to give it a more realistic look. So take note of the location settings that I'm putting on the mapping node. And the rotation, depending on the orientation of your object. So I'm going to set mine at 90 and make sure that you move these characters or these points back to the original point on the color ramp so it buffs out the background shadow. And make sure that those 2 points on the opposite ends are black. Once that's done, we're going to add another node. We're going to add an invert node. So I'm just going to gently drag and insert it in between the color ramp and the mix shader. Once that's done, you're going to render the shape. So this is what you should have once the settings have been completed. And then once you're satisfied with the way your object looks, we're now going to put in our rendering settings to make sure it renders correctly. So I'm going to be rendering on cycles, and then I'm going to change my max samples to 32 and my second max sample to 100, and my frame rate is going to end at 60. And take note of your saving location. So I'm going to toggle to anywhere I'd like to save the animation. So I'm going to be saving the animation onto my videos. Create a folder and rename it respectfully so that you know where to find your folder. And once you're satisfied, you're just going to click accept. Once that's done, you're going to click on your file format and make sure that it's on MPEG, MP4 video format, and then your quality has to be MPEG 4. And then once you animate, this is what you should have. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Cheers.